On June the 28th, 2017, 23-year-old Molly McLaren left the gym and began walking to her car, which was parked in the lot outside. She had just sent a text through WhatsApp to her friends claiming that she was paranoid about her ex-boyfriend stalking her and that she was looking over her shoulder all the time. That would be the last text Molly ever sent. Minutes later, she was stabbed 75 times by the very man she feared might do her harm. Molly had matched with 26-year-old Joshua Stimson on Tinder many months prior. After texting back and forth for a while, the two decided to finally meet up. Molly felt a strong connection with Stimson, who sympathized with her past battles with anxiety and depression. The pair sparked up a relationship. They dated for 7 months before Molly eventually grew tired of Stimson's increasingly controlling behavior. She ended things with him, but he wouldn't let her go that easily. That's when the stalking began. He began posting malicious rumors about Molly on social media, falsely claiming she was a drug addict and tagging her family members on his posts. Stimson also stalked her in person, showing up while she was out with her friends and begging her to take him back. Molly was concerned he might eventually try to hurt her. She contacted the police and talked to her relatives about her worries. Stimson was warned by the police to stay away from her, but he didn't listen. He tracked her location on the night of June the 28th and waited near her car while she was inside the gym. As she got in her car, he attacked her. He stabbed her 75 times while she tried to drive away. Stimson was arrested and sentenced to a minimum of 26 years in prison for the murder. Number 6. Jerry Smith. On June the 1st, 2021, the police visited the apartment of 40-year-old restaurant project manager Jerry Smith on a requested wellness check. Inside, they found Smith's dead body, bruised and beaten. Smith had posed as a woman named Angie on Tinder. In April, he matched with 18-year-old Isamemim Itut, a freshman at Virginia Tech who played for the university's well-respected football team. The pair met up at Smith's apartment, where they engaged in intimate relations. Itut returned to Smith's residence on May the 31st. It was here that he discovered Smith was actually a man. Enraged by his revelation, Itut violently attacked Smith, punching him in the head a total of 5 times. Smith fell to the floor, but Itut continued his assault. He stomped on Smith's head, shattering all of the bones in his face and knocking out many of his teeth. He fled the scene, leaving Smith to die on the floor of his apartment. Itut was charged with second-degree murder. He was released from custody on a bond of $75,000. He currently lives in his parents' home, where he is required to wear an electronic ankle monitor as he awaits his day in court on September the 23rd. Number 5. Dushyant Sharma. In May of 2018, Indian police discovered 27-year-old Dushyant Sharma's corpse stuffed inside a suitcase and left on the side of the highway that connects Delhi and Jaipur. Sharma's demise was put in motion when he matched with 27-year-old Priya Seth. Unbeknownst to Sharma, Seth had already been incarcerated multiple times for scamming men she met online. She told her unsuspecting victims that she ran an escort service, but instead would take their money and run. She kept this up for 8 years before she met Sharma. When she matched with him on Tinder, she thought she had hit the jackpot. Sharma claimed to be a stock trader worth millions. Seth employed the help of 2 partners, Dishkant Kamra and Lakshya Walia. The trio kidnapped Sharma and held him from his family for ransom. Sharma's father told him that his son was a small-time trader who was not very wealthy. Realizing they'd been duped, the kidnappers took the little money Sharma's father could offer them, but they did not return his son. They had already stabbed him to death earlier that day. They crammed his body into a suitcase and left him on the side of the road. Before she and her partners were eventually arrested and imprisoned for the murder, Seth went to a 5-star hotel later that same night, looking to swindle yet another victim. On December the 1st, 2018, Grace Millane, a 21-year-old from Essex, England, was backpacking her way through New Zealand. It was the day before her 22nd birthday, a birthday that never came. Not much is known about that fateful December night, but by the end of it, Grace's dead body was stuffed into a suitcase by Jesse Shane Kempson. Grace had matched with Kempson on Tinder, and the two apparently had consensual intercourse in his hotel room. While this was happening, Kempson put his hands around Grace's throat and strangled her to death. He claims it was an accident, but immediately after killing Grace, he looked up how to get rid of a dead body on the internet and even viewed pornographic videos while Grace lay dead in his room. The next night, on what would have been Grace's birthday, Kempson matched with another young woman on Tinder. While the two were out on a date, the woman says Kempson spent a lot of time talking about the police and even told her an unnerving story about a friend of his who accidentally killed a young woman and went to prison because of it. Kempson requested the two go back to his hotel room, but the woman felt uncomfortable and said she wanted to leave. Kempson was persistent, but the woman was able to come away unscathed. The same cannot be said for Grace Millane. Her body was found in the Waitakere mountain range. As for Kempson, he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. What started as a fun night out for 26-year-old Warriena Wright ended with her begging her Tinder date to let her go before she plummeted to her death from the balcony of his 14th floor apartment. In August of 2014, Wright was in Australia for a friend's wedding and matched with 30-year-old Gable Tosti on Tinder. He invited her to his high-rise apartment, and it was here that the two began drinking and engaging in intimate activities that were most likely violent in nature. Audio files of that night were pulled from Tosti's phone. These files reveal that he had tied Wright up at some point, and there were sounds consistent with Wright being choked that could be heard in the recordings. The two were shouting at each other loudly, which was later confirmed by Tosti's neighbors. Tosti eventually locked Wright out on the balcony, and the neighbors heard her pleading with him to let her go home. It wasn't long after she went out on the ledge that Wright fell, descending 14 flights to the ground, dying on impact. Tosti frantically called his father and told him what had happened. Though he was initially arrested following the incident, he was released on the condition that he stay with his parents. Eventually, Tosti was acquitted of Wright's killing, and he was allowed to go free. Number 2. Angela J. After being stabbed multiple times by her ex-boyfriend, 28-year-old Angela J., a licensed medical doctor, calmly instructed her neighbors as they administered first aid to her. Angela had met 36-year-old Paul Lambert on Tinder. The two dated for 2 months, but Angela then decided to end their relationship. Lambert, a banker in Sydney, Australia, wasn't ready to let Angela go, so he didn't. He stalked his former girlfriend, inundating her with endless calls and text messages, begging her to take him back. She tried to ignore him, hoping he would give up and leave her alone. Lambert didn't stop, however, and eventually the situation got much more serious. Angela lived in Port Macquarie, which is about a 4-hour drive from Sydney. The distance had initially kept her stalker away, but that soon changed. Lambert took the trip up to Port Macquarie and broke into Angela's house while she was at work. When she returned home, Lambert accosted her, pouring gasoline on her and stabbing her with a knife repeatedly. Angela fled to her neighbor's house. She remained calm and focused as she talked the neighbor through how to stop the bleeding. An ambulance arrived and rushed her to the hospital. Luckily, Angela survived the attack and lived to tell the harrowing tale. Lambert was not so lucky. After a 90-mile police chase, his tires were punctured by officers in pursuit. He got out of his vehicle and attacked the police with a knife and was subsequently shot dead. Number 1. Ashlin Black. 25-year-old Ashlin Black of Layton, Utah, was found brutally murdered in the early hours of Sunday morning, May the 24th of 2020. The previous night, she had matched on Tinder with 24-year-old Ethan Robert Hunsaker. The two briefly messaged back and forth before agreeing to meet up for a date. Hunsaker picked Ashlin up from her house around 9 p.m. and the two went on their way. First, they stopped at a local bar where they had a relatively uneventful date filled with drinking and casual chit-chat. They then agreed to go back to Hunsaker's residence. Ashlin was initially taken aback by the state of Hunsaker's apartment. The place was vacant, no furniture, no decorations, just an empty house. She nevertheless followed Hunsaker into the bedroom where the two made love. Afterwards, they fell asleep next to one another on the floor. Ashlin was awoken with a shock. Hunsaker was attempting to strangle her, tightly gripping her neck for close to a minute. Ashlin tried to fight back, scratching at her date's arms and neck, but her feeble attempts to escape were futile. Hunsaker grabbed a 4-inch pocket knife and proceeded to stab Ashlin in the chest, sides, and back nearly 10 times. He sat next to her watching her gradually bleed to death. Hunsaker then called 911 and confessed to the murder. He requested that the police kill him upon arrival, but he was arrested without incident. Apparently, Ethan Hunsaker had been struggling with mental health issues for some time. Hunsaker pleaded guilty to a charge of first-degree murder, but he awaits a mental health examination before his final sentence is handed down. Law enforcement in Calgary, Canada, responded to reports of gunshots in the 300 block of Temple View Drive Northeast on April the 7th of 2022. Upon arriving at the scene, they found 23-year-old Jamie Lynn Scheibel, who'd suffered serious bullet wounds. She was rushed to the Foothills Medical Center where she passed away. The prime suspect in the killing was Scheibel's boyfriend, 37-year-old career criminal Gerald Fromelt, and the incident was described as a domestically motivated homicide. In 2009, Fromelt was one of 35 people arrested in a police sting operation involving Hells Angels Associates in Winnipeg. The authorities suspected that among other crimes, Fromelt had been trafficking cocaine with the Zigzag Crew, a Hells Angels affiliate. In 2010, he was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison after pleading guilty to trafficking cocaine, participating in a criminal organization, and conspiracy to launder proceeds of crime. Following his release, he served further jail stints for various crimes that included possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, being unlawfully in a dwelling house, and violating the conditions of his release. A manhunt was launched for Fromelt in the wake of Scheibel's fatal shooting. He was described as weighing roughly 250 pounds, on a 6'2" frame, and having multiple tattoos on his neck, including that of a straight-edge razor. The manhunt lasted approximately 1 month, a period during which Fromelt was believed to have received help in evading law enforcement. Calgary police eventually arrested Fromelt in the city's southwest on multiple charges, including second-degree murder. Number 6. Raina Holden. In 2015, CCTV cameras outside a pub in Washington, Tyne-and-Wear, England, captured a brutal attack against teenager Raina Holden carried out by her boyfriend, 22-year-old Daryl Moore. The latter was severely intoxicated and reportedly enraged that Holden had talked to one of his friends. Moore threw drinks at his girlfriend, who curled up on the ground in the Cross Keys Beer Garden before attempting to run away. Moore chased Holden into the parking lot, where he punched and kicked her repeatedly. After dragging her through the lot, Moore continued the onslaught by stomping on Holden's head until she was unconscious. The man kept hitting the teen even after she'd gone limp, and only relented when a friend pulled him off her. The attack left the 18-year-old with a dislocated knee, 2 broken ribs, and extensive bruising. She remained unconscious on the pavement for roughly 10 minutes before pub patrons found her and called the police. Holden recovered from the attack while Moore was jailed for 12 months. In the incident's wake, she spent 2 months in a women's shelter before eventually moving in with her grandfather. Holden spoke to the media after Moore was sentenced and claimed that she believed his punishment had been too lenient after he traumatized her, caused her to fear for her life, and left her for dead. The teen described the man as her first love and noted that she'd ignored the warning signs even though Moore had become nasty after losing his job as an engineer. Holden reported that she'd even tried to defend him in the attack's immediate wake, but then realized after undergoing counseling that her behavior was a consequence of the abuse she'd suffered. She consequently urged other victims of abuse not to suffer in silence. Number 5. Mandy Johnson. 22-year-old Canadian woman Mandy Johnson was gunned down on July the 28th of 2010 as she sat in the passenger seat of a vehicle belonging to her boyfriend, Gator Brown, near Poplar Avenue and Town Line Road in Abbotsford. Brown had been the target of an assassination due to his gangland affiliations and involvement in a local dispute known as the Town Line Hill conflict. Brown was present at the scene and the assassin shot at him as well, but he wasn't hit. On October the 6th of 2010, Brown openly plotted revenge in a Facebook post which read, "You kill my old lady and not me. Now I am going to make your lives not worth living." He also threatened to name the suspected killers on social media. 6 years after the fatal shooting, 2 Abbotsford gangsters were arrested. 29-year-old Govinda Gruel was charged with manslaughter, while Jason Gregory Himpfen, aged 41, was charged with second-degree murder and attempted murder. Updates on the matter indicated that Gruel himself was assassinated in North Vancouver in December of 2017, while Himpfen was found not guilty in British Columbia Supreme Court the following year. Brown had reportedly been prepared to abandon his criminal lifestyle, but after Johnson's murder, his life spiraled out of control. He started abusing drugs and carrying a loaded gun. Brown was sentenced to 4.5 years in jail in 2012 after leading the police on a high-speed chase in Surrey. Number 4. Kelsey Skillin. In the spring of 2016, Scottish woman Kelsey Skillin and her boyfriend, James McCourt, returned to their apartment in Milton, Glasgow after a night out. McCourt wanted a cigarette, but realized that his jacket, which had the pack in it, had been left behind. The 19-year-old blamed Skillin for having forgotten the jacket and unleashed a savage attack on her. McCourt immobilized Skillin by pinning his knees against her chest and proceeded to punch her in the head. He also bit into the teen's body, threatened and cursed her out. He hid the keys to the apartment, stashed away 18-year-old Skillin's phone and iPad, and continued beating her. At some point during the 4-hour-long attack, McCourt reportedly shouted at his girlfriend, "You're going to have a bruised face tomorrow, so I better do it right." When asked by the woman if hurting her was worth going to jail, McCourt allegedly replied that he didn't care as long as she was dead. Skillin tried to scream and bang on the floor in a desperate attempt to get the neighbors' attention, but stopped upon realizing that the commotion only increased the viciousness of her boyfriend's attack. He poured water on the woman when he saw that she was drifting out of consciousness. When McCourt went to the bathroom, Skillin retrieved her iPad, which had almost run out of battery. Still, she was able to contact her mother. The woman quickly made her way to the residence and McCourt fled upon hearing the doorbell. In the aftermath, Skillin posted photos of her severely bruised face and body to social media. She told the police that there had been other incidents in which her boyfriend had attacked her between May the 1st and the 31st. McCourt was arrested and subsequently admitted to assault and detaining Skillin against her will. He was jailed for 21 months as well as ordered to be supervised for 8 months after his release and banned from contacting Skillin for 5 years. Number 3. Bailey Wall. On October the 21st of 2019, Mississippi teenager Bailey Wall entered the Microtel Inn in Daphne, Alabama to ask about room rates. CCTV footage showed that moments after Wall had left, her boyfriend, 25-year-old Gary Eubanks Jr., came into the building and demanded cash from the receptionist at gunpoint. The pair then made their getaway in Wall's 2015 black 4-door Volkswagen Passat. 18-year-old Wall, who had a young daughter, had started dating Eubanks in August, and it was suspected that he'd forced her to become his accomplice in robbing the hotel. By multiple accounts, Eubanks was physically violent towards the teen. In the weeks leading up to the robbery, she'd sent a friend a photo of herself with a split lip. She reportedly told the friend that she was scared and wanted to go home. Erin Vinson, a woman with whom Wall and Eubanks had stayed in Daphne, would also later report that the teen had told her about her boyfriend's violent outbursts. On October the 23rd, the body of a young woman was found in a wooded area behind a baseball field at Woodward High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. She'd been shot in the head, and 5 days later the body was confirmed as Wall's. Eubanks thus became a murder suspect. Towards the end of October, he was tracked down and cornered by law enforcement at a residence in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. After failed negotiations during a 4-hour standoff, Eubanks was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head. Number 2. Jasmine Core. For about 9 months leading up to January of 2021, Jasmine Core had been in a controlling relationship with 23-year-old Tariqjot Singh. The latter was described as possessive, as he reportedly wanted to decide with whom his girlfriend could spend time. Sometimes when she went out with friends, he'd reportedly call her demanding she return home. The woman ended the relationship on January the 4th and subsequently reported Singh to the police as he'd begun stalking and harassing her. Singh threatened to hurt himself and confronted Kaur at her workplace, an aged care home in North Plympton, Adelaide, Australia. He'd reportedly begun to blame her for their relationship's downfall and became angry that she wouldn't take him back. In an attempt to humiliate Kaur in the eyes of her family, Singh showed her relatives videos of them in a hotel room and various other private circumstances. Core contacted law enforcement after he'd sent the private clips to her mother, who lived in India, causing the woman to become severely distressed and upset. On February the 9th, the police cautioned Singh for stalking. Less than a month later, on March the 5th, Singh again went to Core's workplace. He'd purchased a shovel and cable ties from Bunnings beforehand. Singh abducted his ex, and CCTV would show him subsequently driving north with her out of view, presumably restrained in the back seat or in the trunk. He headed into the Flinders Ranges, and Core was never seen alive again. On the evening of March the 6th, the police went to Singh's home to ask about his ex-girlfriend's whereabouts. Suspicions arose when investigators learned that Singh was supposed to work a shift at a local pub on the night of Core's disappearance, and that he'd asked a housemate to fill in for him. Singh eventually admitted that Core was dead and that he'd buried her but denied murdering her. On March the 7th, he led officers to the spot where he'd buried her in the Flinders Ranges, north of Hawker. The woman's body was found in a shallow grave under about 12 inches of sand. She was blindfolded while her feet and hands were bound with cables. There were cuts to her throat, but they were superficial and not the main factor in her death. It was determined that the woman had been buried alive and had succumbed to actively breathing in and swallowing soil. Singh was taken into custody and in July of 2023 pleaded guilty to murdering Core as an act of revenge for rejecting him. He faced a mandatory life sentence with a non-parole period, and his sentencing was scheduled for August. Number 1. Las Novias de la Union. On June the 9th of 2019, Mexican woman Paulina Areola Perez was lured into a meeting and assassinated in Mexico City. 29-year-old Perez operated an online shoe-selling business, and local law enforcement believed that she was tricked by someone posing as a prospective customer. Upon reaching the rendezvous spot in Benito Juarez, accompanied by her friend Eduardo Arturo Trejo, Perez was ambushed by armed men on motorbikes. She and Trejo were caught in a hail of bullets while they were sitting in a car. Perez was shot at least 9 times and her friend was shot twice. Both succumbed to their injuries. The targeted hit was motivated by Perez's ties to La Union Tepito, a criminal organization known for various crimes in the Mexican capital, including kidnapping, extortion, drug trafficking, and murder. Perez's boyfriend, Alexis Martinez, was one of the cartel's leaders, known for ostentatiously displaying his ill-gotten wealth on social media. He was assassinated in March of that same year in Zapopan by a gunman posing as a delivery driver. Perez was the latest of several cartel member girlfriends to be targeted and killed for their connection to the organization during the span of roughly 12 months. Perez was part of a trio who called themselves Las Novias de la Union, along with Valeria Diaz and Naibi Mustafa. All three had been killed in brutal fashion, although it wasn't clear if the hits exclusively came from the cartel's rivals or also from within the organization. Thanks for watching. If you had 10 points to build the perfect partner, considering looks, intelligence, humor, and charisma, how would you distribute them? Let us know in the comments section below.